My brother convinced my parents to sell our childhood home to fund his crypto wellness startup. As a consolation prize, they offered me the garden shed. So 2 weeks later, I bought the house out from under all of them. Their frantic, panicked calls were, for the first time in my life, music to my ears. I know what that sounds like. Vindictive. Cold. Maybe even cruel. You're probably picturing me as some kind of corporate predator in a power suit, laughing maniacally as I sign the closing documents. But the truth is, when I made that offer, I was wearing paint-splattered overalls. My hair was in a messy bun, held up by a pencil, and there was a smudge of wood stain on my cheek. I'm a historical restorationist. I don't demolish things. I save them. And that week, I realized the thing that needed saving the most was myself. My family has always operated on 2 completely different frequencies. There's the Leo frequency, and then there's me. Clara. My older brother, Leo, is a prodigy of the modern age. He doesn't have a job. He has a personal brand. He doesn't have ideas. He has disruptive concepts. He speaks in a fluent dialect of buzzwords and venture capital jargon that makes my parents' eyes glaze over with pure, unadulterated pride. His latest venture was Aura, a revolutionary platform that combined cryptocurrency, mindfulness meditation, and bespoke vitamin supplements delivered by drone. He explained it to us over dinner, using a PowerPoint presentation on his iPad, filled with sleek graphs and stock photos of serene people doing yoga on mountaintops. "We're not just selling a product," he'd said, his voice resonating with the conviction of a televangelist. "We're monetizing enlightenment." My parents were practically levitating. "Oh, Leo, that's brilliant," my mom breathed, clutching my dad's arm. "You're going to change the world." My dad nodded, his expression one of profound awe. "Son, this is the future. We've always known you were destined for big things." Meanwhile, I had just spent the last 6 months painstakingly restoring the original 1920s millwork in the city's old public library, a project funded by a shoestring grant and my own stubborn refusal to let a piece of history be ripped out and replaced with cheap MDF. When I'd shown them pictures of the finished reading room, the warm glow of the polished oak catching the light, my dad had patted my shoulder and said, "That's nice, honey. Must be fun to have a hobby that keeps you busy." A hobby? I have a master's degree in architectural preservation. I can tell you the chemical composition of 18th century milk paint and the proper way to restore load-bearing beams in a structure that was built before the invention of the light bulb. But to them, my life's work was a cute little hobby. Leo's Vaporware Wellness app? That was a legacy. This was the backdrop for everything. I was the reliable quiet one. The one who remembered birthdays, who drove my mom to her doctor's appointments, who knew how to fix the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. I was the sturdy foundational brickwork of the family. Leo was the glittering spire, reaching for the heavens. And for my entire life, everyone had been staring up at the spire, never once thinking about the foundation that was holding the whole damn thing up. They didn't see me as an adult with a career. They saw me as a permanent fixture of their comfort, as dependable and as overlooked as the floorboards beneath their feet. I loved that house. Every creak in the floorboards was a memory. The faint scratch on the dining room window was from the time I was 7 and tried to see if a diamond earring could really cut glass. It couldn't, but my mom's anger sure could. The water stain on the ceiling of my old bedroom was shaped, if you squinted, like a dragon. I'd spent my childhood tracing its outline before I fell asleep. That house wasn't just wood and plaster to me. It was the archive of my life, of our lives. But to Leo, and by extension, my parents, it was just an underutilized asset. It was seed money. So when Leo finished his presentation, he took a dramatic pause and looked at my parents. "There's just one thing," he said. "To get Aura off the ground, to really give it the launch it deserves, I need a significant capital injection. I need to show the investors we're all in." He looked from Mom to Dad, his eyes shining with manufactured sincerity. "I think it's time to sell the house." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with unspoken history. I felt a cold dread pool in my stomach. I looked at my mom, expecting to see a flicker of hesitation, a shadow of the woman who planted those rose bushes by the front door, who cried when we had to cut down the old oak tree after it was struck by lightning. But all I saw was a reflection of Leo's ambition. "Well," my dad said, clearing his throat and looking at my mom, "it is a big house for just the two of us, and the market is hot right now." My mom nodded slowly. "Your father's right. It's an investment. And what better investment could we make than in our own son's future?" I finally found my voice. It felt small and thin in the suddenly cavernous room. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "This is our home." Leo turned to me, his expression one of pitying patience. The kind you'd give a child who doesn't understand why they can't have ice cream for breakfast. "Clara, be realistic. It's a building that's tying up hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be working for us, for the family." "It's not just a building to me," I said, my voice gaining a bit of strength. "It's where we grew up. It's full of memories. Memories don't pay dividends, Clara," he said with a little dismissive laugh. "We're talking about building a legacy here. Something that will last for generations." And that's when my dad delivered the final blow. He looked at me, a soft, placating smile on his face. "We know you're sentimental, honey. That's what we love about you. In fact, we were talking about it. If we sell, you can have the old garden shed out back. You can take it with you, for all your tools and things." He looked at my mom and Leo, beaming, as if he'd just solved a complex diplomatic crisis. "A little piece of the old place just for you." The garden shed, a dilapidated leaning structure with a rotted door and a moss-covered roof. The place where we kept rusty rakes and half-empty bags of potting soil. They were selling my history, my sanctuary, my dragon-stained ceiling, to fund a crypto scheme. And they were offering me the garbage shed as a parting gift. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't list all the times I'd regrouted their bathroom tile or patched the plaster in the hallway for free. I just looked at the three of them, their faces glowing with a shared, delusional dream, and I felt something inside me, finally, irrevocably, click into place. It was the sound of a foundation cracking. Or maybe the sound of a new one being laid. I just smiled. That same tight, brittle smile I'd perfected over years of swallowing my own disappointment, and said, "That's very generous of you. I'll have to think about it." I didn't go home that night. I drove to my small rented apartment above a quiet bookstore. And I didn't sleep. I sat at my drafting table, the warm light of my architect's lamp illuminating the papers. But I wasn't drawing. I was thinking. I was tracing the lines of my life, of every small compromise, every swallowed opinion, every time I'd been the nice one, the helpful one, the sentimental one. My mind was a whirlwind of memories, a slideshow of casual dismissals. It wasn't just the house. The house was just the final, unbearable weight placed on a structure that had been failing for years. I wasn't just their daughter. I was their on-call, unpaid handyman. When a pipe burst in their basement 2 years ago, on a Sunday morning, who did they call? Not a plumber. They called me. I spent 8 hours in a damp, musty crawlspace, my clothes soaked, my hands raw, fixing the joint. When I was done, my dad handed me a $20 bill and said, "For pizza, kiddo. You earned it." I was 32 years old. Leo, at the time, was on a networking retreat in Bali, which looked suspiciously like a surfing vacation on his Instagram feed. They'd wired him $500 for expenses. This was the pattern. A constant, draining pattern of disparity. When Leo wanted to launch his first startup, a subscription box for artisanal dog treats, my parents co-signed a $50,000 business loan for him without blinking. The business folded in 6 months. It was a valuable learning experience, my mom had said, her voice full of defensive pride. Last year, when I found a set of rare, hand-carved corbels from a demolished 19th century theater and needed a small short-term loan of $2,000 to secure them before they were lost forever, my dad had shaken his head. "Clara, that's a lot of money to spend on old pieces of wood. You need to be more practical. More like your brother. More like my brother, who had just lost $50,000 on gluten-free biscuits for poodles." The irony was so thick, I could have choked on it. I did all the little jobs. I was the one who remembered to get their car inspected, who programmed their new smart TV, who sat with my mom for hours, helping her sort through decades of old photos. Each task was a thread, weaving me deeper into the role of the dependable, ever-present daughter, the helper. And I had let it happen. I had accepted the pats on the head, the casual dismissal of my career, the idea that my contributions were measured in small favors, while Leo's were measured in grand, albeit imaginary, financial projections. I thought being good meant being accommodating, being helpful, being whatever they needed me to be, even if it meant sanding myself down into someone I barely recognized. That night, staring at the blank wall of my apartment, I realized the truth. They hadn't just offered me a shed. They had offered me a perfect, brutal summary of my place in the family. I was an afterthought, an outbuilding, useful for storage, but not part of the main structure. They weren't just selling a house. They were selling a version of our family that I was no longer willing to be a part of. So I got up from my drafting table. The cold fury from dinner had burned away, leaving something hard and clear in its place. A decision. It wasn't emotional. It was structural. I walked over to my filing cabinet, the one filled with blueprints, city permits, and historical surveys. I pulled out a folder labeled Personal Finances. I opened my laptop and started running numbers. My small business was solvent, but not flush. I had savings, but not a fortune. I had spent my life being careful, practical, saving for a future where I might one day be able to afford a small historic property of my own to restore. I never imagined it would be this one. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of focused activity. I called my mentor, a wonderfully cantankerous old architect named Arthur, who had forgotten more about building codes than I would ever know. I laid out the situation. He was silent for a moment, and then I heard him let out a gruff chuckle. So the vultures are circling the family nest, eh? Well, let's give them a fight. He put me in touch with a mortgage broker who specialized in unusual properties and a real estate lawyer who was, in Arthur's words, a shark in a tweed jacket. I didn't tell them. I didn't text Leo and tell him what I thought of his crypto scam. I didn't call my mom and cry about how much the house meant to me. I knew it would be useless. It would just be more Clara being emotional. They wouldn't hear my words. They only understood action. They understood money. They understood ownership. Fine, I thought. Let's speak their language. I got my finances in order, got pre-approved for a mortgage that would stretch me to my absolute limit. And I waited. I waited for the for sale sign to go up on the lawn of my childhood home. The day it did, my lawyer submitted a formal, anonymous offer for the full asking price, with no contingencies. The call came 3 days later. It was my father. His voice was trembling with excitement. Clara, you won't believe it. We got a full-price offer on the house. Cash. Can you believe our luck? I took a steadying breath. Wow, Dad. That's great news. Great? It's a miracle, he gushed. Leo is ecstatic. This means Aura is a go. The investors will be thrilled. We're closing in 2 weeks. We're going to be out celebrating tonight. You should come. I can't tonight, Dad, I said, my voice calm and even. I have some paperwork to finish up. Oh, right, your projects, he said, the excitement in his voice dimming slightly, the familiar tone of dismissal creeping back in. Well, don't work too hard. And hey, don't forget to clear out that shed. The new owners will want it empty. Don't worry, I said, a slow, quiet smile spreading across my face. I'll take care of it. The week before the closing was a masterclass in family obliviousness. My mom called me twice to ask if I could help her pack up the kitchen, since you're so good at organizing. Leo sent a message to the family group chat, a picture of him standing in front of a sleek, glass-walled office building with the caption, Future Aura HQ. Dreams do come true when you have the courage to chase them. Hat disruptor Nafat visionary. I liked the message. I even added a little clapping emoji. I was playing the part of the supportive, slightly irrelevant daughter to perfection. Inside, I was a nervous wreck. I was about to detonate a bomb in the middle of my own family. I was about to risk everything. My financial stability, what little relationship I had left with them, for a building. But the more I thought about it, the more I knew it wasn't just about the building. It was about the principle. It was about the fact that they were so sure of my place, so certain I would just roll over and accept the scraps they threw me, that they couldn't even fathom me having a plan of my own. They had underestimated me my entire life. This time, they were going to find out just how badly. The day of the closing, my lawyer called me. It's done, she said, her voice crisp and professional. The funds have been transferred. The deed is being registered in your name. Congratulations, Clara. You own the house. I hung up the phone and just sat there in my quiet apartment, the silence buzzing in my ears. I felt a wave of nausea, then a surge of terrifying, exhilarating freedom. I had done it. I had actually done it. The first call was from Leo. It came about an hour later. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. Clara, call me. Now. The all caps was a nice touch. I ignored it. Then my mom called. I ignored that too. Then my dad. Then a text in the family group chat from my mom. Clara, there's been some kind of horrible mistake with the sale of the house. The lawyer says the buyer is... You? Please call us. This isn't funny. Oh, but it was. It was profoundly, deeply, achingly funny. I let them stew in their confusion and panic for another hour. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat by my window and watched the city lights start to twinkle. Then, when I was ready, I drove over to the house. My house. The for sale sign on the lawn now had a red sold sticker slapped across it. I had my new keys in my hand. I walked up the front path, past my mother's beloved rose bushes, and I let myself in. The house was empty now, filled with echoes. It smelled like dust and memories. I walked into the center of the living room, stood on the hardwood floors I knew so well, and I took a deep, shuddering breath. That's when I decided to call them back. I dialed Leo first. He answered on the first ring. "What did you do?" he hissed, his voice tight with a rage I'd never heard from him before. The smooth, charismatic brand guru was gone, replaced by a petulant child who'd just had his favorite toy taken away. "I bought a house," I said simply. "It was on the market. I made an offer. It was accepted. I believe that's how real estate works, isn't it?" "You can't be serious. You sabotaged me. You sabotaged this family. That money was for Aura. It was for our future." "No, Leo," I said, my voice as calm and solid as the foundation beneath my feet. "That money was for your future. You were selling my past to pay for it. I just decided not to let that happen." "This is about the shed, isn't it?" he spat. "You're doing all this over a stupid, rotten shed? How petty can you be?" "The shed was just the punchline, Leo. The joke has been going on for 30 years. I just decided I wasn't laughing anymore." He started yelling then. A stream of invectives about how selfish I was, how I'd never understood ambition, how I was content to play with my dusty old relics while he was trying to build an empire. I listened for a moment, and then I said, "I have to go, Leo. I have a house to take care of." And I hung up. Next was my mother. She was crying, predictably. "Clara, how could you? After everything we've done for you. We were doing this for the family, for your brother. He's devastated. You've broken his heart." "What about my heart, Mom?" I asked, and the question hung in the air between us, heavy and unanswered. "Did anyone think about that when you decided to sell my childhood home, without even having a real conversation with me about it?" "You're being so dramatic," she sobbed. "It's just a house." "You're right," I said. "It is just a house. And now it's my house. You wanted to treat it like an asset. So, I did too. I paid the asking price. It was a clean, simple transaction." "This isn't a transaction. This is a betrayal," she wailed. "Your father is so hurt he can't even speak." "Tell him I hope he feels better," I said quietly. "And tell him not to worry about the shed. I'll be keeping it." I ended the call before she could respond. I couldn't listen to any more. The aftermath was a silent, bitter war. They didn't speak to me for weeks. My aunts and uncles started calling, fed a one-sided story by my parents. I was unstable. I was spiteful. I had stolen the family home out of jealousy for Leo's success. A few of them believed it. But my cousin Sarah, who had always been a quiet observer like me, texted me late one night. "Just heard what happened. All I can say is, wow, you have my respect. It was a tiny crack of light in a wall of condemnation. I spent those first few weeks alone in the big, empty house. It was daunting. The silence was a presence. I'd walk from room to room, my footsteps echoing, and I'd feel the weight of what I'd done. I had my house, but I'd lost my family. Or maybe I had just lost the illusion of a family I thought I had. Some nights, I'd sit on the floor in my old bedroom and stare at the dragon-shaped water stain on the ceiling, and I'd cry. I'd cry for the little girl who just wanted her dad to be proud of her dusty hobbies. I'd cry for the woman who had to buy her own history back because no one else thought it was worth saving. But then the morning would come. The sun would stream through the old, wavy glass of the dining room window, the one with the scratch on it. I'd make coffee in the kitchen, where I learned to bake, and I'd start to work. I started with the small things. I carefully stripped the layers of cheap, yellowing paint off the original fireplace mantel, revealing the deep, rich walnut underneath. I reglazed the old windows, my hands moving with a practiced, steady rhythm. I pulled up the ugly, stained carpet in the hallway and found pristine, original hardwood floors. With every nail I pulled, every layer of grime I cleaned away, I felt like I was doing the same thing to my own soul. I was stripping away the years of neglect, of being covered up and ignored, and I was finding what was solid and beautiful underneath. The house became my sanctuary and my project. I moved my business into the spacious front rooms. My drafting table looked perfect in the bay window. Clients would come to discuss projects, and they'd see my passion not just in my blueprints, but in the very walls around them. My business began to grow. I hired an apprentice, a young woman fresh out of architecture school, with a fire in her eyes. I started getting calls for larger, more prestigious projects. The City Historical Society asked me to sit on their board. I was no longer Clara, the quiet daughter with the quaint hobby. I was Clara, the owner of a thriving preservation firm. I was becoming the person I was always meant to be, in the one place I'd always felt I belonged. My relationship with my family has never been the same. It's a ruin, and some ruins, I've learned, are too fragile to rebuild. Leo's Aura startup never got off the ground. Without the massive injection of cash from the house sale, his investors got cold feet. He calls it a temporary pivot. He now sells online courses on how to harness your inner disruptor. I think he lives in a condo downtown. I don't really know. My parents and I have a tentative, brittle truce. We exchange cards on birthdays and holidays. They came over once for Christmas Eve, 2 years after I bought the house. They walked through the restored rooms, their faces stiff with a mixture of awe and resentment. "It looks very clean," my mother had said, running a finger over a dust-free mantelpiece as if she was searching for a flaw. My dad just nodded, looking around at the gleaming floors and perfectly restored millwork. "You've put a lot of work into this place," he said. And for the first time, I think he almost meant it as a compliment. They've never apologized. Not really. They've never acknowledged the hurt, the years of dismissal, or the cruelty of that final offer of a garden shed. In their narrative, I am the one who overreacted, the one who broke the family apart over a piece of property. But I know the truth. I didn't break it. I just held up a mirror, and they didn't like the reflection. Sometimes when I'm working late in my office, the old house groaning and settling around me, I wonder if I did the right thing. Was a building worth the price of a family? But then I look around at the beautiful, strong, authentic space I have built. A space that is wholly and completely mine. And I know the answer. I didn't buy a house. I bought my self-respect. I bought my future. I preserved the one thing they were most determined to demolish. Me. Growing up, I've learned, isn't about pleasing everyone or fitting into the box they build for you. It's about having the courage to tear that box down and build your own damn house. And maybe, if you're lucky, you get to keep the shed too. So I have to ask you, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or did I do the only thing I could to save myself? Was this an act of vengeance or an act of liberation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight to claim your own space in the world, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about drawing your own blueprints for life.